Everybody. As you know, we've been doing this series on Resurrection Life, and this morning it's called Resurrection Life Mission. And I think that must have been one of the shortest readings we've had during this series, because some of them have been like 57 verses long. So I got 3, which in a way is good, but on the other hand, there's not an awful lot. But I think it's a really important passage in Acts, and also really prefacing the spread of Christianity throughout the world, also has relevance to us today and our thinking about what it really means for us to be Christians in 2023. So the context, just running back, we've had a lot of sermons during this series coming up to this moment. The context is the church is expanding. The disciples have been scattered from Jerusalem. They've been persecuted. Saul has been after them. James has been killed. Suzanne talked about that so powerfully, I thought, last week, by Herod. Peter's been arrested but miraculously released. Then Herod, I don't know if you read the bit above, you probably didn't, but he got his comeuppance and dropped dead because he was taking worship from the people as if he were God. So at least one of their aliens has gone, which is, just shows God moves in some times, doesn't he? And other times he lets terrible persecutions happen. So anyway, there are a lot of people moved off to Antioch, which is about apparently 300 miles away, borders of Syria and Turkey. They were talking to all the local people, with a lot of Greeks involved, and the church started to grow. And it's actually in Antioch that the believers were first called Christians. So I think that's really quite interesting. Anyway, the church in Jerusalem obviously knew about this outpost and thought they'll send someone to keep an eye on them. So they sent Barnabas. And when he got there and saw all that was happening, he thought, I'm going to get Saul. Now, if you look back, obviously I think people would have been quite suspicious of Saul because he'd been going around persecuting them, trying to get hold of all the Christians. Then he'd had his incredible conversion on the Damascus Road. But I think most of us, if we'd been around then, we might have been quite cautious about trusting him. So he'd been for a while in Jerusalem. So Barnabas bringing him gives him affirmation and authority. And so Barnabas are there in Antioch with Saul in Antioch for about a year teaching. And then it just says, amongst this thriving church, there were lots of Jews, Gentiles, it was multiracial, there's a core group of what sound like really gifted leaders, and they came together to fast and pray. It doesn't say why, whether they regularly did that, or whether they had a particular feeling they should be fasting and praying, and it says, the Holy Spirit tells them to set apart Barnabas and Saul, and they send them out. And that's all it says. And that's really the beginning, isn't it, of Paul's missionary journeys. So the title is Mission. So what is mission? The dictionary tells us it's a calling to go out and spread faith or an important assignment. So these days, everyone has a mission statement, don't they? Apparently, even at interview, you might be asked what your mission statement is. And we've got one, haven't we, as a church? I'm sure you all know. It's an amazing one, really. Igniting passion for Jesus. And really, that is what mission is about when you think about it, isn't it? It's bringing people to know of Jesus. So when you look at Acts, though, I think it's quite easy to imagine this group of people. They're really fired up about Jesus. A lot of them would have actually probably witnessed his life, his death, and his amazing resurrection. Why wouldn't you be fired up? Others will have heard about it. They've seen miracles. You can only imagine they would have been bursting to talk about it. There was also the revolutionary change, really, of Gentiles being accepted amongst the Jews, which was a massive switch. And so there must have been enormous energy and excitement and a natural drive, I think, to go and talk to people about the good news that the Messiah had finally come, that God had sent Jesus to save them, as he has us. It was very contemporary for them. However, there was a horrible flip side, wasn't there? You've got James already being murdered. They've all been scattered. They've left their homes. It wasn't without cost. I don't think we talk so much about mission these days, but when I was a child, many moons ago, there were lots of meetings when they used to speak to us about going out on the mission field. And they used to talk to us about, if we didn't go, that we had to realise that there were people going off like over a cliff into eternal damnation because they hadn't heard about Jesus. And it was all really quite scary. And then there would always be an altar call to stand up if you were prepared to go. Well, I was actually terrified because, for one thing, I didn't think I'd got a lot to say. My faith felt very wibbly-wobbly, and I never was very good about talking about it. I dreaded being sent somewhere where there were no loos, which is my worst fear. And also, we also had lots of publicity about things like the American missionaries who went to Ecuador and subsequently murdered, and some cannibalized. So in my head, it wasn't a great thing, and I was very anxious. I think I did stand up, but fortunately, I either didn't hear or I didn't get called to go abroad. So what is it really like now? I think when you look back at Acts, it's a bit intimidating, isn't it? Because I don't think most of us are out there on the streets talking to people, healing people, holding big rallies. We're just like in southeast England, pootling around doing our jobs and occasionally mentoring church, perhaps. And sadly, our culture is such that I think England might soon be on the receiving end of missionaries, mightn't it? Because we're a post-Christian society, aren't we? We do have people that we support who go abroad amazingly, like Sam and Abby, Pat and Ruth. But for most of us, the command to go and spread the good news of Jesus looks like something very different from that in Acts. I think most of us feel quite inhibited and cautious about speaking. And in fact, in lots of jobs, you actually are not allowed to. When I was working as a GP, I would probably have ended up getting struck off if I talked about my faith specifically. And likewise, teachers, very restricted. I think that lady who worked at BA Terminal or something, she lost her job because she was wearing a cross round her neck. So I think we are all quite restricted. Going back a bit, I heard a very interesting program, you may have heard it on Radio 4, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, about the growth of the Christian faith in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Apparently there were devastating plagues across the Roman Empire. They think it may have been smallpox. It lasted for about 15 years, and somewhere between a quarter and a third of the population succumbed. Generally, obviously, people were terrified. There's no treatments. So as soon as anyone got symptoms, they were basically thrown out of the door to keep them away from everyone else and just left to die. However, the Christians in the area really felt it was Jesus' command was to look after each other, and they provided them with basic care. So they were giving them fluids, a bit of food, just basic nursing. And it gradually became apparent that a large number of them were actually surviving against all the odds. They were looking after pagans as well as Christians. And the people around began to think, well, were they working miracles, or was it just basic care? In any event, the outcome was that by 380 AD, Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, and it's thought partially as a result of those Christians' basic actions of care for each other and those around them. So practical faith in action has always spoken as a form of mission and demonstrated Jesus' mission. So what does it actually mean for us? Undoubtedly, I think we do need to continue to pray a lot for the people abroad, don't we? And the traditional missionaries. As you know, I've always been very involved with Tearfund and supported them a lot because I feel they really embody faith in action across the world. They're there, times of crisis, natural and man-made. They fight war against deprivation, starvation, slavery. They provide sanitation, job training, refugee work, release modern slaves, look after those abused, the orphaned. So we can relatively easily pray for them. They have a prayer diary. I don't know if anyone follows it, but last week, just to show the complete contrast in the world, there were 2 days where they were talking about people that Tearfund had helped who'd had arms bitten off by crocodiles because there's no water supply. They have to go to the local lake to get water, and then the crocodiles get them. And Tearfund are intervening, providing basic supplies of water and helping people adjust to their disabilities. It's such a different world, isn't it? But they do incredible work. But I also think for me, sometimes it's a bit of passing the buck because I give some money, I say some prayers, and phew, that's my bit of mission done. But actually, we're all called, aren't we? Jesus said we're all called. So what does it really mean for us? I suppose in my heart, I really think we need to be fired up with conviction and love for Jesus and want to obey his commands. I don't think we can do this stuff from duty. The other day I met a friend and she was telling me how she was redecorating her daughter's flat. They'd been rented out and they needed to do a massive clean. She thought that previous tenants hadn't actually cleaned it for many years. She said the floors were wooden and filthy. At this, my ears pricked up because I've got wooden floors. I'm never quite sure how you can safely clean them without them warping if you put water on them. Anyway, she told me about this amazing new power mop device that she'd been given that worked like a dream. Well, you guessed it. Within 24 hours, Amazon had delivered me one. And a few days later, I was talking to my Becky about her floors. And of course, she's going to get one too. So that's what we do about ordinary things, don't we? We share things that mean something to us or we found are useful. If you're a football supporter or something else, you go around naturally chatting, don't you? And I think maybe we need to take it to a lower level and be pretty relaxed, really, and just be natural and share our experience of faith, however simple and undramatic it may be. I don't think people are offended by us saying we have or will pray about something, just mentioning church, thanking God for the beauty of creation. Often when I'm out walking with non-Christian friends and we go somewhere beautiful, and I'll sometimes say, wow, you've got to believe in someone, haven't you? Or just a throwaway. Maybe it doesn't do anything, but I just want to acknowledge God in that moment, and who knows? So our simple stories of faith, when we get the opportunity, we can share. Also, I think a lot our actions do speak, don't they? We can be the person to be kind. We can listen to the person that everyone else is bored stiff of. We can sit next to the really smelly person. I know that may feel like a cop-out, but actually it is still Jesus' work, isn't it? It's what he always did, look for the outcasts. One of the silly things I do, some people probably know, is that I still make a big cake every week for the surgery where I used to work. I leave it on the doorstep outside because they're never open when I go. And I tend to forget to ever go and collect all my cake boxes. So periodically a poor receptionist is delegated to my house and the doorbell rings and there's this poor lady with a massive pile of cake boxes. And the last time she came, I said to her, thank you so much. And as she went, I said, do give everyone my love. And she looked straight at me and said, I don't need to. Every time we see your cake, we know you're sending us love. And I was quite touched, really, because I hadn't really thought about it like that. But people can interpret actions. Now, I can't finish without talking about the larder, can I? So, looking back at the larder, we weren't exactly fasting and praying, I have to be honest, but some of us had been very worried during lockdown about social isolation and the loneliness of the people around us, and we wanted to do something. We had prayed a bit. We set up that chatty banner thing that the diocese were providing. I don't know if anyone remembers it, on the green by my house, once a week for a little while. We tried to be friendly to those around us. I'm not sure we really achieved very much, but through it, I came across Di Hill, our local mayor, who, as you know, is one very powerful lady. And she bumped into Chris and spoke to Chris about other churches having food larders, and she thought it'd be a good idea for St. Matt's. Chris suggested she call me. He subsequently explained to me this was to get me off his back about social action. Good one. Anyway, I did get off his back. I went to St. Philip's to see theirs in action and was really fired up and excited about it. I knew, though, I couldn't possibly do it alone. And obviously it's very biblical, isn't it, for people to go out in pairs. And I was dwelling on it in my mind, and suddenly Jan's name came into my head, and I thought, she's the perfect person. She's got the whole skill set. I know I could work with her, but will she agree? It's quite a big ask. Mercifully, brilliantly, she agreed. And the next thing was the Bethel became vacant. We had that working party and cleaned. We had an open session to ask anyone who was interested in volunteering to come. Loads of people came. I was amazed. The next thing was going back to St. Philip's. They explained how things operated for us. We ordered our first delivery. Terrifying. We opened the doors. We found people started to come. We were able to start the cafe area. People stayed, people chatted. We tried to befriend. Mark supplied some books with a Christmas story in for children at Christmas, so we did have a bit of Christian input. We really tried to follow Jesus' commands, to feed the poor, to love our neighbour. We wanted to welcome all. There's no restrictions on anybody. The week before last, I was on the door and I was chatting to a guy. I think he said he's 49, about various things. And as he went, he just turned and said, "This is a godsend, you know." And I don't think he meant it perhaps in the way we do, but I thought, please God, may it be a true godsend for him. It's not preaching the gospel with tracts and billboards, but I think it is faith in action. There is no discrimination or restriction. Everybody can come. I think Ignite's doing the same with the youth, isn't it? And they've got a touch of God thrown in. And I think for a lot of us, that's how it currently is. So, I'll shut up in a sec. Of course, what do we need to do? Support our mission links. Support Tear Fund. Please support Tear Fund. Please get their private prayer diary if you haven't, because it does give you lots of information and they are one amazing organisation. And we do need to pray. I know we find it difficult to pray in an organised fashion, but we do need to keep trying to pray. When you go out of the door in the morning, you can just pray, Lord, if there's someone I should speak to today, might I bump into them? Might I just have the chance to be kind to someone? I think we can pray for the Spirit of Jesus to be within us all the time, to fill us with love, to ignite us with confidence and a passion for him, like our strapline, and his kingdom. So often, I think it comes back really, doesn't it, for us to be trying to walk with Jesus. I noticed a verse in Romans last week that says, clothe yourself with the presence of the Lord Jesus Christ. If we're going to spread the good news of Jesus, we surely need to have the Spirit of Jesus in us, which he promises us, breathing his life into us and out to others. I didn't know Susie was going to choose that song, though I suppose I might have guessed, but it's my favourite song because I think it sums it up. Jesus, be the centre, be my source, be my light, be my hope, be my song. Jesus, be the fire in my heart, be the wind in these sails, be the reason that I live. Be my vision, be my path, be my guide. Those are all the things, aren't they? A prayer for all of us to be closer to him, to love him more. And surely we will then automatically want to share him with others. When we're full of passion about something, floor mops, football, whatever it is, we automatically share it, don't we? We need to talk about him. We need to share our lives as Christians with each other, build up our faith. I think it's hard for us sometimes. The resurrection is something so long ago. But when Chris started the series, I don't know if you remember, during that talk, I suddenly had that moment of, yes, it's true. And I think that is really, isn't it, what it is when we focus on it and think this really is the truth. Jesus is alive and we can live our lives with him and we do want our friends and neighbours to know. I thought maybe we could just finish with the Lectio prayer. I think lots of you do Lectio, don't you, on your app? And I think it's such a brilliant prayer because it really summarises what we should be doing. And it's a prayer so good to do every day. Father, help me to live this day to the full, being true to you in every way. Jesus, help me to give myself away to others, being kind to everyone I meet. Spirit, help me to love the lost, proclaiming Christ in all I do and say. Amen. Thank you.